Ambassador Valerie Thross stood in the control room and watched the screens with pride. Today would change everything. 4 to 7 billion people across 12 different star systems were watching their screens right now. They were all waiting to see the humans for the first time. "This is a bad idea," said Elder Norvis. He was old and experienced. His gray skin had many wrinkles from years of diplomatic work. "You should not broadcast this meeting live." Valerie shook her head. "The rumors about humans are silly. People say they are dangerous. But look at them." She pointed at the screen showing the human ship docking. "They are small. They have no claws. No armor. No weapons growing from their bodies. They look weak." The human ship was simple and gray. Nothing special. When the door opened, 3 humans walked out. They wore plain gray uniforms. The one in front was a man with brown hair that was turning gray. He looked ordinary. Normal. Maybe even a little old. Ambassador Thross. The man smiled and held out his hand. "I am Thomas Blake. This is Margaret Foster and Lieutenant David Grant." Valerie took his hand. She noticed he was very gentle when they shook hands. His grip was soft and careful. "See? Perfectly safe," she thought to herself. "Welcome to our station," Valerie said warmly. "Please, follow me. The whole galaxy is watching today." Something strange crossed Thomas's face for just a moment. Was it worry? But then he smiled again. "Of course. We are honored." They walked to the conference room. It was beautiful. The table was made of polished stone that floated in the air. Thin metal beams held it up using magnetic fields. Each beam was a work of art, shining and beautiful. The windows showed the planet below, all blue and green. Thomas and his team sat down. Margaret opened a small computer. Her movements were very precise and careful. David stood near the door. He looked relaxed but somehow also very alert, like he was paying attention to everything at once. Valerie began her speech for the cameras. "Before we start our meeting, I want to thank humanity for joining the Galactic Council. This is a new beginning. This is a time of peace and cooperation and—" Crack! One of the metal beams broke. It fell from the ceiling. 3 meters of solid titanium, falling fast. Falling straight toward Valerie. The beam weighed 340 kilograms. Enough to kill her instantly. Valerie's mind froze. She could not move. Her body would not respond fast enough. This was how she would die. Thomas's hand moved. It was so fast. Like lightning. His arm shot up and his fingers wrapped around the falling beam. He caught it. Mid-air. With one hand. The beam stopped. Thomas was still sitting in his chair. His arm did not shake. His face did not show any strain. He just held the massive piece of metal like it weighed nothing at all. And mutual understanding, Thomas continued talking as if nothing had happened. As if he had just caught a piece of paper instead of a beam that should have crushed his arm and driven him through the floor. Then he tossed it aside. Casually. The way someone might toss away an empty cup. The beam hit the floor with a sound like thunder. Everyone in the room jumped. The floor cracked where the beam landed. "Sorry about that," Thomas said. His voice was calm and mild. "Is everyone all right, Ambassador Thross?" Valerie stared at him. Her mouth was open but no words came out. Across the galaxy, 4 to 7 billion people were staring at their screens in shock. The silence lasted 3 full seconds. 3 seconds of pure, stunned disbelief. Yes. "Thank you," Valerie finally managed to say. Her voice was very small. "Good." Thomas smiled. It was the same gentle, friendly smile from before. "Now, about those trade routes you mentioned." Valerie's communication device began beeping frantically. Emergency messages were flooding in from everywhere. In the corner of her eye, she could see her staff making desperate gestures. They were signaling her to stop the broadcast. To cut the cameras. To end this now. She looked at Thomas Blake. He sat there patiently, waiting for her to respond. That beam lay on the floor like a toy he had discarded. A toy that weighed more than 3 full-grown Vorians. A toy he had caught without even standing up. I think we should take a short break," Valerie said. Her voice was shaking. "Of course." Thomas nodded. He looked understanding and kind. "Take all the time you need." Valerie stood up on trembling legs. She walked toward the door. As she left, she saw David Grant lean down and pick up the fallen beam. He lifted it with one hand. Just one hand. He examined it to check for damage. Margaret was making notes on her computer. She looked completely calm. Like this was normal. Like watching someone catch 300 kilograms of metal one-handed was just another Tuesday. Thomas Blake remained sitting at the table. His hands were folded calmly in front of him. Those hands. Those impossibly strong hands. He looked peaceful. Patient. Friendly. But Valerie's mind was screaming. She stumbled into the control room. "Cut the feed," she gasped. "Cut it now." The technician's hands flew over the controls. The broadcast ended. The screens went dark. But it was too late. The clip had already been shared 8 million times. By morning, it would be hundreds of millions. The galaxy had just learned something about humans. Something terrifying. And Valerie Thruss knew that nothing would ever be the same again. 6 hours after the incident, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Valerie stood in the center of the enormous chamber. She could feel everyone staring at her. Their eyes were full of anger and disappointment. 4 to 7 billion viewers, Elder Norvis said quietly. His voice was calm, but Valerie heard the frustration beneath it. The clip has now been shared 200 million times. Our best scientists have analyzed what happened. They calculated the force required for what Ambassador Blake did. The results are very troubling. The large screen in the center of the room showed the footage again. This time it played in slow motion. Thomas Blake's hand moving impossibly fast. The beam stopping as if it weighed nothing. His arm perfectly steady, not even trembling. 340 kilograms, stated Director Arvin. He was a Trellin, and his species was known for being strong. "I can lift maybe half that weight using both arms and mechanical help." He caught it with one hand while sitting down. Without any equipment. Perhaps their technology enhances their strength. Valerie suggested weakly. She was hoping there was some logical explanation. "No augmentations detected," interrupted a voice from the back. A human woman stood up. Her name was Patricia Venn. She was the human liaison officer, and she had been very quiet until now. "I have been authorized to explain the situation. It has escalated beyond what we had planned." The entire room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her. Patricia stood and walked to the center. Now that Valerie was really watching, she noticed something different about how Patricia moved. Too smooth. Too controlled. Like watching a dangerous animal trying to look harmless. "Ambassador Blake is 63 years old," Patricia said clearly. "He has a heart condition. His left knee has arthritis. He takes medication every single day. By human standards, he is actually below average in physical strength for his age." Someone in the chamber gasped loudly. Valerie felt like ice water had been poured down her back. "Wait," Norvis said slowly. "Are you telling us that what we witnessed was a sick, elderly human who is weaker than normal humans?" "Yes," Patricia said simply. "But that is impossible." Arvin protested. "No biological creature could." "May I show you something?" Patricia walked to the display console. Her fingers moved over the controls. "These are classified files. These are incidents that Earth agreed to keep secret. The Council's senior members know about them. The rest of you were never told." The first file opened on the big screen. It showed a mining accident on a planet called Kelmar 7. It happened 3 years ago. A tunnel had collapsed. Valerie watched as a human engineer named Robert Mitchell held up a support beam with his back while 2 alien workers crawled to safety. He held it for 4 full minutes. When he finally came out, he was saying sorry for taking so long. Sorry. As if saving lives was something he should have done faster. The second file showed a space station losing air. A human crew member named Julia Grant physically held a heavy door open against the vacuum of space while 23 people escaped. When they examined the door later, they found permanent dents in the titanium frame. Dents made by her fingers. The third file made Valerie feel sick to her stomach. A transport ship was being attacked by pirates. 2 human security officers fought off 14 armed pirates in close combat. Just 2 humans against 14 pirates with weapons. The footage was marked as extremely graphic. Valerie watched anyway, even though she did not want to. The pirates never had a chance. It was over in minutes. Each incident was kept quiet because Earth requested it, Patricia explained. "We did not want to frighten you. We wanted to be your neighbors and friends. We wanted to trade with you and learn from you. But we knew that if you understood what we really are, you would be terrified of us." "How many more incidents are there?" Norvis asked. His voice sounded tired now. 147 over the past 8 years. Some are small displays of strength. Others are more concerning. Valerie's mind was spinning. She thought about every time she had met a human. Every handshake. Every friendly pat on the shoulder. Every casual gesture. They had all been holding back. All of them. Every single time. Why are you telling us this now? Valerie asked. Patricia's expression became heavy with sadness. Because the clip cannot be hidden now. The whole galaxy knows something is different about humans. We can either let people panic and make up wild stories, or we can give them the truth. The council is voting on a new rule. What rule? Director Arvin demanded. No more live broadcasts during human diplomatic meetings. All footage must be reviewed and approved before anyone sees it. It is for everyone's peace of mind. You mean to hide what you are, Valerie said. It sounded like an accusation. No, Patricia said firmly. To hide what we are capable of. There is a difference. We do not want to be monsters in your nightmares. We want to be your colleagues. Your partners. Elder Norvis spoke up. The senior council already voted. We approved this new rule. We are telling you now as a courtesy. Ambassador Thros, your diplomatic credentials are suspended for 60 days. You broadcast without permission. But I did not know, Valerie started to protest. Not knowing is not an excuse. The information was available in the files. You chose not to look. Norvis turned to Patricia. The vote was unanimous. All future interactions with humans will follow the new protocol. Patricia nodded. Earth accepts these terms. We agree to the rules. As the council meeting ended, Valerie remained in her seat. She kept replaying the footage in her mind. Thomas Blake catching that beam. That slight smile on his face. The way he tossed it aside like it was nothing at all. She had to know more. She had to understand what humans really were. That evening, something appeared on her computer. An anonymous data file. There was no information about who sent it. No way to trace where it came from. Just a simple label that read, "What they don't want you to know, human home world specifications." Valerie's hand hovered over the file for a long moment. Then she opened it. And everything changed. Valerie did not sleep for 3 days. Her private quarters became filled with screens and data files. The anonymous package contained information that should have been far beyond her security clearance. Everything was about Earth. Geological surveys. Biological reports. Atmospheric analysis. All of it classified. The first number made her stop breathing. Gravitational pull, 1.32 times galactic standard. She checked the math 3 times. She could not believe it. Every human she had ever met had been living in what her species would consider a high-gravity training facility. Every single day of their entire lives. They were constantly being pulled down by a force that would exhaust her in hours. The atmospheric data was even worse. Oxygen concentration, 21%. Atmospheric pressure, 1.4 times standard. Corrosive oxidation potential, extreme. Valerie's own atmosphere had only 8% oxygen. Her respiratory system would start to fail in Earth's air within a few hours. The pressure alone would cause her severe pain. And humans breathed this toxic mixture as easily as she breathed her own mild air. They had evolved in what was essentially a corrosive, high-pressure environment. She opened the biology comparison files. Her hands shook as she read the data. Human bone density, 40% higher than galactic average. Human muscle fiber efficiency, exceeds military-grade synthetic standards by 23%. Human cardiovascular system, has backup systems for emergencies. Human pain tolerance, 67% of pain signals filtered automatically before reaching conscious awareness. That last one made her pause. Humans did not even feel most of their pain. Their bodies just automatically ignored it. She found a video file labeled Human Development, Childhood Physical Benchmarks. She clicked on it with dread in her heart. A human child appeared on screen. Maybe 8 years old. The child grabbed a bar above their head and lifted their entire body weight using just their arms. Up and down. Up and down. Again and again. The child did this 20 times. For exercise. For fun. The file noted that the average grip strength of a human child was 42 pounds of force. Valerie's maximum grip strength was 31 pounds. She was physically weaker than a human child. A child. Another file opened automatically. Human recreation, common sports. She watched something called rugby. Humans running at full speed and deliberately crashing into each other. They were fighting for control of a ball. They hit each other with forces that would shatter her bones into powder. Then they stood up. They smiled. They did it again. This was entertainment for them. She watched boxing. Two humans stood in a ring and punched each other in the head repeatedly. Over and over. As a sport. People cheered and clapped. She watched mixed martial arts. Humans wrestling and striking and choking each other until one of them gave up. Then they shook hands and laughed together. This is what they do for fun, Valerie whispered to herself in horror. This is their idea of recreation. She found a historical file titled Human Evolutionary History. Humans were persistence predators. They had evolved to chase their prey across vast distances until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Humans were not the fastest runners. They did not need to be fast. They just never stopped coming. They would chase an animal for hours. Sometimes for days. They would track it and follow it until it was too tired to run anymore. Then they would kill it. Humans had hunted enormous creatures into extinction on their own planet. Animals 3 times their size with natural weapons and armor. Humans had no claws or fangs or venom. They just never gave up. They won through pure relentless endurance. The file about their adrenal system made her feel cold with fear. Humans had a gland that released special chemicals when they were stressed or frightened. These chemicals increased their strength by 40 to 60%. They made humans faster, stronger, and more aggressive. They reduced pain. And this system activated automatically. Humans called it an adrenaline rush. The file noted, in extreme circumstances, human strength can increase dramatically for brief periods. This is involuntary and automatic. Subjects often report feeling normal during activation. Thomas Blake had caught that beam while seated. While relaxed. While his emergency system was completely inactive. That was not even his full strength. Valerie needed to see humans for herself. Really see them. The station hosted a human cultural festival every week. It happened in one of the large observation decks. Normally it was broadcast throughout the station. But now, after the incident, it was only recorded. Footage had to be reviewed before anyone could see it. Valerie obtained special access to watch the live monitoring feed. The festival looked peaceful and gentle. Human music played softly in the background. It was melodic and pleasant. Children ran around laughing and playing games. Adults stood in small groups talking and drinking. There was food and decorations. Everything seemed so normal. So harmless. Then Valerie saw an elderly woman. Her hair was completely white. Her back was bent slightly with age. She walked slowly, clearly affected by the years. The old woman leaned down to pick up her grandchild. The child looked about 4 years old. The woman lifted him easily and raised him high above her head. The boy giggled with delight. The grandmother was smiling and laughing. Valerie checked the biometric scanners. The child weighed 68 pounds. 68 pounds. More than Valerie's entire body weight. An elderly human woman, one who clearly had difficulty moving, had just lifted more than Valerie weighed and raised it above her head. For fun. To make a child laugh. She watched human teenagers playing basketball. They jumped high into the air, actually leaving the ground completely. They reached heights that would require her people to use mechanical assistance. And they did it over and over again, constantly, effortlessly. She watched human adults setting up tables and chairs for the festival. What would take 4 of her people and anti-gravity equipment to move, 2 humans simply picked up and carried. They were not struggling. They were chatting and laughing while they did it. Every single movement was careful. Controlled. Gentle. Because it had to be. Because if they were not careful, they would break everything around them. Valerie sat back and felt her understanding of the universe shift. Every human handshake was carefully calibrated not to crush bones. Every human step was measured not to crack the floor. Every human gesture was controlled not to cause injury by accident. They lived their entire lives holding back. Every moment. Every interaction. Every single day. And Thomas Blake had forgotten himself for just 1 fraction of 1 second. One tiny moment of instinct taking over. That was all it took to catch 340 kilograms with one hand. Valerie's mind filled with a terrifying question: what could humans do if they stopped holding back? What would they be capable of if they stopped being careful? She needed real answers. Truth without any filters. She sent a message to Ambassador Thomas Blake requesting a private meeting. No cameras. No recordings. No witnesses. Just the 2 of them. Just truth. The meeting room was small and private. Extra soundproofing lined the walls. Special equipment blocked any listening devices. Nobody could hear what was said here. Nobody could record anything. This conversation would be completely secret. Valerie arrived first. Her nerves felt like they were on fire. She could not stop her hands from shaking slightly. Thomas Blake entered alone. He moved with that same careful grace she now recognized. His footsteps were lighter than they should be for someone his size. He was compensating for the station's lower gravity, making sure he did not accidentally jump with every step. Ambassador Thross. He sat down very slowly. He pulled the chair with obvious care, like it might break if he was not gentle. Thank you for requesting this meeting. I believe we have much to discuss. You have been lying to us, Valerie said bluntly. She did not want to waste time. No, Thomas replied calmly. We have been careful about what we share. There is a difference between lying and being selective with information. You let us think you were like us. Ordinary. Harmless. We are harmless. To our friends. Thomas folded his hands on the table. Those same hands that had caught the beam. But you are right. We are not ordinary. We have known that since we first met other species. Valerie pulled up her data files on a small screen. I have been researching Earth. Your gravity. Your atmosphere. Your evolution. I know what you are now. Then you understand why we have been so careful. Tell me why, Valerie demanded. I want to hear it in your own words. Thomas was quiet for a moment. He leaned back slightly. The chair creaked under the shift in his weight. Then he began to speak. When we first made contact with the Kelma 8 years ago, we were so excited. We were thrilled beyond words. We had finally found other intelligent life in the universe. We sent our best diplomats. Our friendliest people. Individuals trained in cultural sensitivity and peace. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. The first Kelma who shook hands with our ambassador ended up with 3 broken bones in his hand. Our ambassador was trying to be gentle. He thought he was being careful. The Kelma spent 6 weeks in medical treatment. Valerie winced at the image. We did not understand at first. We thought it was just an accident. So we sent engineers to help with a mining project. They were eager to help. They wanted to prove that humanity could be valuable partners. Then a tunnel collapsed. A human named Robert Mitchell held a support beam in place with his back for 4 minutes while Kelma miners escaped. I saw the footage, Valerie said quietly. Then you saw how the Kelma looked at him afterward. They looked at him like he was a monster. Robert was heartbroken. He had saved their lives, and they were terrified of him. Thomas's voice grew heavy with emotion. That was when we finally understood. We were not the weak ones. We were the frightening ones. So you started hiding your true nature. We started being careful, Thomas corrected gently. Every human who leaves Earth now receives mandatory training. Extensive training. How to shake hands without breaking fingers. How to open doors without ripping them off their hinges. How to move, sit, stand, and gesture without alarming the people around us. He met Valerie's eyes directly. We train our children starting at age 5. Every human child learns to control their strength before they are allowed to interact with non-humans. It is not deception, Ambassador. It is consideration. It is respect. The beam, Valerie said. In the conference room. You forgot yourself. For a fraction of a second, yes. Thomas looked genuinely upset about it. I saw you in danger, and my instinct took over. I am truly sorry. That broadcast has caused many problems for everyone. How strong are you really? Valerie asked. She needed to know. Without holding back? Without being careful. I am 63 years old, Ambassador. I have a heart condition. I take medication every day. I am weak by human standards. He paused. But I could probably lift you and your chair together with one hand. Without straining myself. The casual way he said it made it somehow worse. Your military, Valerie said. Your soldiers. I cannot discuss classified military information. Please. I need to understand. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Then he made a decision. He pulled out a small data pad. This is highly classified. If this information gets out, both of our careers are finished. Do you understand? Valerie nodded. He showed her a video file. Human soldiers in training. They were running obstacle courses while wearing armor that looked impossibly heavy. They were carrying wounded comrades across rough terrain. Full-grown humans in full gear. They were doing exercises that looked designed to break their bodies. This is our basic training, Thomas explained. For ordinary soldiers. Not special forces. Not enhanced troops. Just regular military recruits. The soldiers were training in enhanced gravity environments. 1.5 times Earth's already brutal gravity. We train in conditions harder than we will ever fight in, Thomas said. So when real combat comes, our soldiers are more than ready. Valerie felt cold all over. What about your special forces? I really cannot discuss that topic. Thomas, please. I need to understand what we are dealing with. He was quiet for a very long time. Then he spoke so quietly she almost could not hear him. Our special forces train in 2 times Earth gravity. They can operate in environments that would kill most species within minutes. They train to fight in complete darkness, in vacuum, in toxic atmospheres, underwater, and underground. They train to operate without sleep for 72 hours straight. To survive injuries that would be immediately fatal to others. To win against impossible odds. And your warships? They use Earth standard gravity and atmosphere. 1.3 times galactic standard. Our crews train and live in that environment constantly. It is normal for them. It is home. Valerie did the calculations in her head. Human ships could perform maneuvers that would knock other species unconscious from the G-forces alone. Human crews could remain effective in combat situations that would incapacitate every other military in the galaxy. You could conquer the entire galaxy, she whispered. Yes, Thomas said simply. Easily. If we wanted to. Why don't you? Thomas Blake smiled that same gentle smile. Because we do not want to rule over you, Ambassador Thross. We want to be your friends. An alarm suddenly screamed through the station. Both of them stood instantly. Valerie noticed Thomas was on his feet a fraction of a second faster than her. What is happening? Thomas asked urgently. Valerie checked her communicator. Her face went pale. Pirate attack. A civilian station 30 million kilometers from here. The nearest council ships are hours away. And human ships. There is a patrol frigate. 15 minutes away. Thomas's expression changed. I need communications. Now. They rushed through the corridors. Valerie had to jog to keep up with Thomas even though he appeared to be walking normally. His stride was just longer, his movements more efficient. Within minutes they reached the human diplomatic ship's communication center. Margaret Foster was already there, working at multiple screens at once. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced speed. HSS Tenacious responding, Margaret reported without looking up. Captain Elizabeth Wright commanding. She is requesting confirmation on rules of engagement. Tell her standard protocol, Thomas said firmly. Minimal force. Avoid casualties if at all possible. And Margaret? Already done, sir. No external cameras. Military encrypted channels only. Nobody sees this. Thomas turned to Valerie. I think you should watch what happens next. There will be no cameras and no official record, but you deserve to understand who we really are. Valerie nodded. Her hearts were pounding hard in her chest. Margaret brought up the tactical display on the main screen. The pirate fleet had 4 heavy cruisers surrounding a small civilian transport ship. It was a standard raid formation. The civilians had no chance of escape. A small icon appeared on the display. The human frigate. 1 ship against 4 pirate cruisers. Tenacious is accelerating, Margaret reported calmly. 15 gravities. 15, Valerie's words died in her throat. 15 gravities of acceleration would kill her entire crew within seconds. Their bodies would be crushed. Your people on that ship are fine, Thomas said quietly. Our warships are built for 20 gravity maneuvers. 15 is actually quite gentle for combat situations. The human ship closed the distance impossibly fast. 90 seconds. That was all it took to cover 30 million kilometers. The pirate ships opened fire immediately. Bright streaks of energy weapons lit up the tactical display. Tenacious is taking hits, Margaret said. Her voice was perfectly calm. Shields holding at 87%. Captain Wright reports damage is negligible. Why is she not dodging the attacks? Valerie asked in confusion. Thomas's smile went cold. His eyes were hard. Because she does not need to dodge. The human frigate returned fire. But these were not the devastating weapons Valerie expected. These were surgical precision strikes. Each shot disabled a pirate weapon system without destroying the ship. Clean. Efficient. Controlled. Then the human ship moved closer. Much closer. Boarding range. Tenacious launching boarding teams, Margaret reported. How many soldiers? Valerie asked. Standard complement. 20 Marines total. On the tactical display, Small boarding pods shot out from the human frigate. They attached to all 4 pirate cruisers at the same time. 5 human marines per ship. The communications officer patched into the pirate channels. The translations came through clearly. Shouting. Weapons fire. Then screaming. Then silence. 4 minutes and 18 seconds after the boarding pods attached, the all-clear signal came through every channel. Pirates have surrendered, Margaret reported. 0 casualties on either side. All pirates are restrained and ready for transfer to Council authority. Civilian transport reports all crew members safe and unharmed. Valerie stared at the display in complete shock. 4 pirate ships. Each one had a crew of at least 30. Some maybe had 40. Over 100 pirates total. Taken by 20 human marines in less than 5 minutes. And nobody died. What did your people do to them? Valerie whispered. Thomas looked at her. For the first time, she saw something truly dangerous in his expression. Something predatory. Something that had been carefully hidden behind his gentle smile. They did what humans do when our friends are threatened, he said quietly. They won. An hour later, Valerie stood with Thomas on the observation deck. The civilian transport was being safely escorted to the nearest station by the human frigate. Everything was calm again. Peaceful. The pirates will be turned over to Galactic Council authorities, Thomas said. They will face proper trial. None of them are seriously injured. Some bruises. Some broken bones. But they will all survive. Your marines could have killed them all, Valerie said. Yes. In those 4 minutes, your people could have slaughtered over 100 beings without any difficulty. Yes, Thomas said again. But we did not. We do not want to be killers, Ambassador. We want to be protectors. Valerie thought about everything she had learned over the past week. The strength. The endurance. The sheer overwhelming physical capability that humans possessed. And the choice they made every single day to be gentle instead of violent. When you caught the beam in the conference room, she said slowly, you said your instinct took over. It did. Your instinct was to protect me. Not to hurt anyone. Not to show dominance. Not to demonstrate your power. Your first instinct was to protect. Thomas nodded. We are social creatures, Ambassador. Pack animals, some scientists call us. When something threatens our pack, our family, our friends, our allies, we react. We react strongly and immediately. Is that why you hide your capabilities? So we do not become afraid of you. Partly, Thomas said. He gazed out at the stars beyond the window. But also because fear changes everything. We have seen it before in our own history on Earth. When one group is significantly more powerful than another, it creates imbalance. It creates resentment. It creates fear and hatred. We do not want that with the rest of the galaxy. So you pretend to be weak. No, Thomas said firmly. We choose to be careful. We choose to be gentle. We choose to be controlled. Those are not signs of weakness, Ambassador. They are signs of true strength. Valerie was quiet for a moment. What happens if humanity stops being careful? If you decide you are tired of holding back constantly? Thomas turned to face her completely. His expression was absolutely serious. Then the galaxy would learn very quickly why Earth's environment produced persistent predators that conquered an entire planet. Why we evolved in high gravity and toxic atmospheres. Why we are the only species that practices violence as recreation and calls it sports. He paused. But that will never happen. Because we made a choice as a species before we ever left our solar system. We decided that if we found other intelligent life, we would be friends first. Always. Even if it meant hiding parts of ourselves. Even if it meant always being careful, always holding back, always being gentle with everyone around us. That must be exhausting, Valerie said softly. It is, Thomas admitted. Every human who serves off-world goes through mandatory psychological counseling. The constant control takes a heavy toll on mental health. But it is worth it. Because the alternative, being feared, being isolated, being seen as monsters, that would be so much worse. Later that day, Valerie stood before the full Galactic Council. Every representative was present. They all waited to hear what she would say about the human problem. Humans are dangerous, she said clearly. This is true. They could conquer our galaxy if they chose to. This is also true. But they have chosen something else entirely. They have chosen to be gentle. To be careful. To be our friends. She gestured to where Thomas and his delegation sat today. Every human makes this choice. Every day. Every interaction. Every moment. They live their entire lives holding back. Not because they are weak, but because they are strong. And they know it. And they choose kindness anyway. She looked around at all the assembled representatives. The camera ban is not to hide what humans are. It is to preserve the peace that their restraint makes possible. So we can work with them as equals without constantly being reminded of the strength they choose not to use. The vote was unanimous. 1 week later, Valerie met with Thomas again. They were working on trade agreements. No cameras. Just 2 diplomats doing their work. Does it ever bother you? Valerie asked. Always having to hold back. Thomas picked up his water glass. She watched how carefully his fingers gripped it. How precisely he controlled the pressure. Any harder and the crystal would shatter. Every single day, he admitted quietly. But some things are worth the effort. He set the glass down without making a sound. Without cracking the crystal. Without any of the 1,000 small accidents that would be so easy for a human to cause. Being your friend is worth the effort, Ambassador Thros. Valerie smiled. And that is why space leaders never allow live feeds when meeting with humans. Not to hide what you are, but to preserve the peace your restraint makes possible. Exactly, Thomas said softly. And in that moment, Valerie understood. Humans were not hiding from the galaxy. They were protecting it. Protecting everyone from the fear of what they could do. Choosing instead to show what they would do. They would be friends. They would be protectors. They would be gentle. Every single day. No matter how hard it was. That was true strength.